Can we please call it asshole jerky from now on?
No, that makes me think it's jerky made of asshole.
Ash and Zach are super smart. They went to college and learned a bunch of stuff. And Beau and Andrew didn't go to college because that's the way life goes sometimes. What happens when you put them together and you try to make them learn? Grab your friends, let's listen together on Get Dumped on an Info Dump podcast.
Welcome to Get Dumped on an Info Dump podcast. My name is Andrew. I'm joined
Not just
here.
an Info Dump podcast, the Info Dump podcast.
I thought we talked about this. It's so we're trying to rebrand halfway through. It's too late. It's too late. My name is Andrew, and I'm here along with a couple of my friends to dump some info on you. I'm not going to be dumping. Zach will, but I'm here with Ash. Go ahead and say hello.
What's up?
I'm also here with Beau's replacement. Justin is going to be joining us today.
Friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod. Former guest host, and Zach.
Hey.
Zach will be dumping on us about Essex, some sort of a boat. That's all I got.
Ship.
Zach, take us away.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Thanks for listening. Glad to see you here, listening to our show. I'm right behind you. I can see you in your car.
Whoa!
Slow down. You're going over the speed limit right now. So I want to talk to you today about a story that I first read about over 10 years ago in a book called In the Heart of the Sea by Nathaniel Philbrick. They later turned it into a very mediocre Ron Howard movie that took a lot of liberties with the story that I did not appreciate. Although it was pretty cool that they cast Crims Hemsworth as Crims Hemsworth.
Merry Christmas. Merry Crisis. What movie was this?
It was called In the Heart of the Sea. It was it came out in like 2015. It had Chris Hemsworth in it. It had Tom Holland before he was Spider-Man in it.
Tom Holland was in it?
Yeah, he was Tom Nickerson, I think.
This sounds like a movie I would watch. I never even heard of this.
Don't watch it. It's not very
fine.
good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not going to watch it. Especially since Crims Hemsworth is in it. I like Chris Hemsworth, but not Crims.
Not Crims. They talk about the Hollywood Chris's, but what about the Hollywood Crimses?
The Crimses.
And Cillian Murphy was in it, and Brendan Gleeson.
Oh,
that's a good cast.
Dang,
it's a great cast.
Really good cast.
But they did some weird shit with the story that I was not a fan of. But anyway,
I would ask, but I don't want to be spoiled for the rest of the story.
Well, we can talk about it at the end. Based on what I remember from the one time that I watched it in theaters in 2015.
Okay, yeah. We'll talk about movie criticisms later after this.
Yeah. So, getting into the story. This is kind of a thematic continuation from last week's episode talking about the orcas attacking the yachts in the Strait of Gibraltar. Justin, that's a spoiler for you, but
yeah,
or
he was not here for this one.
That episode's not out yet because of the peek behind the curtain of the weird order that we record episodes in.
By the time that this comes out, so
by the time this comes out, it'll be out. So it's fine.
Future Justin, it's a spoiler.
We're in the future.
We're technically weeks in the future right now.
Yeah, we're super in the future. So I'm going to be talking about the Whaleship Essex and the tragedy thereof. The Essex left the port of Nantucket, which is off the coast of Cape Cod. Is it off the coast of Cape Cod? Is it Massachusetts? I've somehow forgotten exactly where Nantucket is, but that doesn't really matter. It's a little island. Yes, it's off of Cape Cod. And the Essex left Nantucket on August 12th, 1819, with 21 people on board.
That was a long ass time ago.
Yeah, very long time ago. And so our major cast of characters will be the Captain George Pollard, his first mate Owen Chase, 13 sailors, and then there was like the second mate and the third mate, who is Matthew Joy, who'll come into play. Pollard's young cousin Owen Coffin was one of the sailors, and
his name's Coffin.
Yeah, his name is Owen Coffin.
Like every storytelling, just telling me that this guy's going to die. Well, spoiler.
This
okay, well now I know everyone
a really
dies.
long time ago.
Now I know
spoilers.
everyone dies. So thank you for that.
I'm just saying, even if they lived to be like 100, they would still be dead because this was in the past.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point.
Stop using logic. We don't use logic here.
And then the other main player is a cabin boy named Thomas Nickerson, who was, I want to say, like 13 or something like that at the time. Nickerson.
That's a good name for like a Cockney child. Like Thomas Nickerson here.
Thomas.
He was 14. And so, fuck, you got me doing it again. At the time, in 1819, Nantucket.
Don't blame me. No, I'm not taking responsibility for that.
You know what I used to do to break people of pet words during speeches when I was in the Marine Corps? I would have them give their brief, and I would sit there with a Nerf gun, and anytime they said, I would shoot them with it.
So here's the thing, is that I'm not in the Marines, and you have no power over me.
I was going to say, Ash, if you want, you should sit on the other side of the room and just shoot him anytime he does it.
Yeah, Ash is there.
It breaks the habit.
Bands and like flick them.
Breaks the habit real damn quick.
Or like stab him with a knife.
I didn't know that giving speeches was such an important part of serving in the Marines.
Would you give a speech about what your favorite flavor of crayon is?
That did happen. For my
purple, right?
No, I like the blue ones.
Oh, it's blue flavor's so good.
Yeah, my job. We give intel briefs all the time, so not everyone has to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, most Marines I meet are
Marin.
They're the engine's running, but no one's really behind the wheel.
Just ghost riding the whip.
Yep.
So at the time, in 1819, Nantucket was the head of the American whaling industry, which was in the midst of being industrialized and perfected. We're going to talk a little bit about the whaling industry because it's kind of the like central point of the story.
It's why they were all there.
It's why they were all there.
Yeah,
and
I'm going to boo it regardless.
We can say boo. We can say boo. Whaling industry, boo. We're still trying to recover from the ecological impacts. Boo.
Boo.
That's a good point.
Leave the whales alone.
I have a very complicated relationship with the whaling industry because at one point in time,
leave them whales alone. Sorry, keep going.
Well, I love whales. I think that they're phenomenal animals. They're really cool. It's just like, hey, what's that doing in the ocean? That's not supposed to be there, but it's really good at it. So that's pretty cool. And then at the same time, these people are going out and killing the whales. But there's also something, I don't know, romantic or just really interesting about the idea of the whaling industry and how like perfected it was at the art of murdering as many whales as possible.
Did you say romantic?
Yeah, in like the sort of like literary sense.
No.
It's like the same reason that people like Deadliest Catch too. Like there's the like people on the doing a dangerous job out there on the ocean. It's compelling. There's triumph of humans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. There is some sort of like romanticism when it comes to talking about like the whalers.
Yeah.
What the
and like
fuck
conquering the sea, you know, I feel like that's
Andrew,
a very grandiose.
There are multiple ways to use the word romantic.
There is, but I refuse to use it in this regard. I don't like that. I think that's weird.
You're telling me you want to kiss a whale? Ugh.
Ew, gross. Whalers? You like whalers are fucking hot, dude.
They're pretty as fucking hot. Whalers probably the thing about whalers is that they were salty and they smelled awful all the time. And
romantic.
they would slick back their hair with tar because they weren't like going to be giving themselves haircuts on the ship. So instead they just used tar to slick back their hair. And a lot of the times people living in port towns would say that you could smell the whalers coming back to shore before you actually saw them. And we'll talk a little bit about the process of that. I also volunteered at the Mystic Seaport for summer when I was younger as well. And that was pretty fun. That is a historic museum that was it was in the process of restoring the oldest surviving American whaler. And they've got a lot of the whole town. The state animal of Connecticut is the sperm whale because it was so invested in the whaling industry back in the day.
Wait, they were restoring a whaler? Like the ship?
Yeah.
Or a person?
Yeah, like the ship. It was the Charles W. Morgan, which was built in the 1840s,
Okay,
I think.
they weren't like resurrecting.
They were doing surgery on
doing
a
blood
real
magic.
old guy. And it was like old school where you could like sit in the theater and watch. It was crazy. So many health violations. It was a real problem.
Awful. Yeah, it smelled horrible too.
Now, at this point in 1819, the whaling industry was all in on sperm whales. In the early days, they were going for right whales occasionally. They'd go for right whales again later on. Humpbacks and various baleen whales were gotten for the baleen teeth that they could use for.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it true that they called them right whales because they were the right whales to hunt because they were so friendly they would just come up to the boats?
That's what I've heard, yes.
What?
It's so sad.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
That's romantic as fuck.
Ooh.
I hate this.
It's deeply sad.
I'm really sad. Not bummed out.
I guess this episode's a little bit of a bummer, so feel free to come in with jokes whenever you will feel like lightening the mood. The mood.
The mode.
I think Zach having a stroke
synthesizer. I am having a stroke.
Let me tell you about Crims. He really gets me in the mode.
It's like that lady in the YouTube video where she's like the reporter, and she's like, never get in the pit.
She's having like a stroke on camera.
She's like a mini stroke on camera, and like
video's so scary.
I don't want to laugh at it, but I laugh at it every time, and I feel really bad for it, but I laugh so hard.
What about the one where it was like, this man just hiked up to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, but he's gay. I mean, he's blind.
Wait, what?
Oh,
I've not seen that.
That was a real one. There's
right,
also one where it was like a police officer who I think was killed in the line of duty, and her name was like Deirdre something, and the reporter said DD Madudu. I'm so sorry.
That's so fucking fucked up.
I love. There's one of this dude. He's commenting on a hockey game. Guy just broke his stick, and I think he's sitting there with 6 inches of his shaft in his hand, and his face just melts as he realizes what he just said.
Oh no!
This isn't a news bloopers podcast.
Back to whales.
So smelly whalers.
The whaling industry was all in on sperm whales. For they could be used for a lot of different things. And
I heard they're called DD Madudu whales. I'm sorry,
DD Megadudu whales. The two main things you could get from a sperm whale that made them really valuable were this fluid in their head. You know, sperm whales got that really big head. It's because it's full of a waxy fluid called spermaceti, which
sounds like a pasta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spermaceti.
Hey, can I get the spermaceti Alfredo? Extra spermaceti.
Bolognese spermaceti?
This is like every Olive Garden dish I've ever heard of in the world.
And then there's this stuff in their
unlimited
guts that's
soup
called
salad and spermaceti. Oh man!
And then there's this stuff in their guts that's called ambergris. And ambergris.
That's a 311 song.
It's a funky smelling substance that they use to cover squid beaks so that it doesn't tear up their insides. It's secreted in their guts, and now we use it as a binding agent in perfumes, it's one of the most valuable substances on the planet. And
we still use it a
lot. Yeah, we still use it, and so whales aren't hunted for it anymore, and instead it's kind of harvested from the surface of the ocean because it floats, and they like poop it out. And you can just find it floating on the ocean. It'll float up on it'll like wash up on shores and stuff like that. But it's like from a protected animal. So like you have to have a special permit to harvest it. But people just like go like following sperm whale pods and just like scoop up the ambergris and sell it to perfume companies.
Wild.
That's
Today
awesome.
I learned perfume is made of whale poop.
It's not technically poop, like, but
it's poop.
Yeah,
it's poop. You heard it here first.
And so
it's poop.
I'm surprised that they
there's
don't
a point
have
where the
synthetic.
ratio of ambergris to poop is like
any amount of it.
Yeah.
0.1% of it is still poop.
Like there's still poop.
You're like, yeah, I smell so good. Like a little
like
bit of whale poop.
That's like saying that castoreum is beaver poop, but it's just from a gland that's next to the anus.
That's close enough.
So the spermaceti is it's a gross waxy substance that's produced. There's a shitload of it in the big head of the sperm whale. You've seen a sperm whale before, and that's why they're called sperm whales. Is because of the spermaceti, which the whalers originally believed was where the whale stored his cum. Was in his head.
They thought that it was.
They thought that it was cum.
Oh my
they
god!
But actually, it's used for buoyancy control and echolocation.
Wow, yeah, that's way more helpful.
Yeah,
that's way more different.
Why did they immediately go to cum?
Because it looks like it.
Much better than head sperm.
Did they like like a whale guy? Like he kills a whale and he like puts his hand in his head and he's like, oh yeah, and he goes, and he does like the sticky test and he puts it in his mouth. He's like, that's cum.
From every source that I've seen, spermaceti looks a lot like semen.
He's like, I've tasted this before, and everyone's like, what?
Yeah.
All these sailors are like, I know what this is like.
But
you have to like
At this moment, I'm kind of glad that Beau's not here for this episode.
They called him Sticky Jerry, and he's like the expert, and he was like, "Yep, that's come."
You're like, Harry, get over here. He's like, yeah, come on, right?
I'm like, don't you have to like climb in? Like their heads are huge. You're like, you have to like get in there.
Yeah.
To get it out.
To get the prize.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit. Here's our first dumpity chumpity. Which one of these was not a use for the oil that was refined from spermaceti? Was it industrial lubricant, constipation medicine, or protoplastic?
Only one of those has to do with non-sexual or body stuff. So I'm going to go protoplastic.
Well, industrial lubricant is for like machines and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But also for industrial sex.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
Like robot
industrial
sex?
boning.
Whoa. Robots need love too. It's
Beau's
a
not
lonely
here.
existence.
Beau's not here, so someone's got to take up the load talk.
Apparently, it's Zach.
That's true.
He told me to. He said, I'm not going to be able to be there. You have to talk about loads at least once for me. And I said no. But here we are anyway.
I think the protoplastic or whatever, but I don't know. Justin, you probably know more about this than I do.
I don't.
Oh.
So I'm
So the
gonna
protoplastic-
go with constipation remedy.
So the protoplastic was the one that I made up. It was
Oh my
very
God, it
widely
was so
used
smart.
as a industrial lubricant. It was very good at lubing things. And that's
It's
also
oily.
why it made a good constipation medicine.
It's
That
oily.
was used.
Oh, my
it's
wheels
oily.
aren't moving. Hey, grab me some of that whale cum.
At this point, I need to just emphasize that it was not actually cum.
And they
But
figured
they
out that it
thought it
wasn't.
was.
They figured it out pretty quickly. The people who called it that were like idiot whalers who didn't know what anything was. But the second that somebody like looked at it and was like, "This is not actually cum, guys." They're like, "Well,
They're like,
we
"Are you
already
fucking serious?"
named it, you idiots."
Are you serious, Captain Asshole? Like, really?
And there's also cosmetic, a common ingredient in cosmetics as well. And then you could use like the blubber for all sorts of stuff, and the meat for all sorts of stuff, and the teeth were commonly kept by sailors and as like trophies. And then when they were bored, they would carve little designs into the teeth. And,
That's so
like,
cute. I love that.
And that's for Scrimshaw. I've got a whole book of Scrimshaw. It's super cool.
It's really cool art.
Yeah, it's super
Yeah.
cool.
So from the early 1700s, Nantucketers were whalers and not much else. Pretty early on, it's a small island, and pretty early on, the land was overfarmed. They had to import a lot of their food, and it was pretty much just a place where people grew up in the middle of the whaling industry. They lived their entire lives involved in either making ships or breaking ships or going out to sea and doing whaling stuff. The hope was that you'd eventually become a captain or become one of the people who owned a whaler, because you weren't going to have a good time or making a lot of money any other way. In the early days, they hunted the right whales that were right off the shores of the island. But as time went on, they were focusing more on sperm whales and were kind of like at the forefront of whaling technology. They started fitting their ships with kettles and pots and such like, and hooks and cutting tools for processing whales right on board the ships.
And
This was
sperm
called the
whales are found in like deep water, right? Like way out there.
water. And
So
this
that's
was
farm
called
to
the
table is what you're saying.
Oh, exactly. This is called the Tri-Works. And so journeys started going out further and further and taking longer and longer as they could, so that they could take as many whales as possible. And as they were depleting the populations of whales that were closer to Nantucket. So you'd have to go further out to find the whales. And then they just stay out at sea for about 2.5 years usually to get as many whales as possible.
Wow. Holy crap.
The-
Really?
That is a long
Yeah.
time to be on a boat.
Mhm.
Now
The
I
average-
understand the trope of like the wife home waiting for her whaling husband or fishing husband to come home because they were gone for 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm. That was
What the fuck?
about the average length of a trip. And so whaling was really popular. It was
If
extremely
my
profitable
partner
for the
was
people.
gone for that long, I would stand on the shore and wait just like that with like a shawl that like flies in the wind so everyone could see how sad I am.
And wispy, forlorn look.
I think in one of the books we read about it, there was a chapter about like women on Nantucket, because there were so many men missing all the time. They were like at the center of commerce most of the time because they had to
Mhm.
be.
Oh,
And they
That's cool.
There was nobody ever really talked about it. It was a big taboo to actually talk about it, but you will find a lot of wifey's little helpers inside the walls and behind the cabinets and stuff like that. A few like urban archaeology on like old houses or home renovations will find like makeshift dildos in the walls and stuff like that.
Were they made of whalebone?
More like whale boners.
I hope.
They're also getting that spermaceti.
Hey,
Scrimshaw for your pleasure.
So if you were not the person who owned the whale ship or the captain, you were not likely to actually make any money on a whaling voyage. The mates could sometimes organize a decent share, but in a lot of the time you were making like 1,000th of the profit of the ship, if that, and they would always try and find some way to like do Hollywood accounting to make it seem like it made as little money as possible while they were still like hiding the money everywhere. And so a lot of the times the sailors
fucking capitalism, dude.
Fucking capitalism.
For
the
real?
sailors would sometimes come back from a 2.5-year whaling voyage to find out that they are now in debt to their employer.
That's fucked. Oh my god,
Holy crap.
that's how I would kill my employer.
Yeah, so it was not really
the
something
next time
that
we
you
go
did
out
if
on the
you're-
boat, they don't come back and be like, I fell out.
If your life was together, this was not the sort of job that you did. This was the sort of thing that you did if you were trying to move up and get experience on a whale ship and eventually become a captain or a boat owner. It was something that people would do who were trying to like find adventure. You'd go on like one whale ship voyage and then you'd come back and you'd be in debt and you'd be like, okay, well, I guess now I have to write a book about it or something.
Take a little gap year on a whaling boat.
And then there were the people who were doing it because they were trying to get away from something on shore.
Criminals and the like.
I killed my previous
criminals and the
captain, so I'm going to join this one.
Essex was leaving back to the Essex. It was leaving on a trip to the Pacific, west of South America on a 2.5-year trip. And this was a lot of the reason why it took so long. Is there was no Panama Canal at the time. This was before the Panama Canal, so it took a long fucking time to get out there. They had to go all the way around South America.
Wow.
And so it took a really long time to get there. They left really late in the season. Well, not really late, just a little late. They left in August. Usually ships leave in June or July. It was a 20-year-old ship, the Essex, and George Pollard, going back to him, he was a novice captain. This was the first time he was captaining a ship. First or second time. I don't remember exactly.
I remember my first time captaining a ship.
I don't want to say definitively that it was his first time because I don't remember, but I know for sure that he was a novice. He was not a well-seasoned captain.
He was a green captain, not a withered old sea captain.
Mm-hmm.
What do they call it? Greenhorn? Is that a ship thing?
I think a greenhorn is like a person who works on a ship who's like lower in rank.
Greenhorn means that you're new to something. I don't know if it's specifically a ship term.
I've heard it more like Western.
Yeah, like a cowboy.
A person who is new or inexperienced at a particular activity. I'm not a seasoned veteran, but I'm no greenhorn either. So it's a general term for a novice.
Mm-hmm. So because it was a greenhorn captain. So because it was because the Essex was a 20-year-old ship with a novice captain, it was hard for them to get as much of a crew as they needed to fully crew the ship, and they ended up going out with pretty much the minimum number of people. Each boat could hold 6 people. I think each boat was supposed to hold 6 people, and so you like barely had enough to crew each boat and have enough people on board to keep the ship going. So it was generally speaking a very bare bones skeleton crew type of situation that they had going on.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I was curious and I looked it up, and it turns out that a greenhorn is the lowest man on the totem pole on a crab boat. Coming back to Deadliest Catch. That's where I knew it.
Coming back to Deadliest Catch. It was immediately off to a bad start because 2 days after leaving, they hit a really bad storm and almost sank.
Shit.
Oh, fun.
Oh my God.
But they managed to pull through and repair the ship.
How much worse could it get?
They made it all the way down to the bottom of South America and crossed up. And then at one point when they were docked in Peru or Chile, I don't remember which, one of the crew members abandoned the ship, which then super fucked up like how many people could be in the whale boats, because now they're only at 20 instead of 21. So that sucks. Then they finally got to the spot where they were originally planning to get to. Probably because the ship was always it was leaky. The ship was leaky, and it was a lot of maintenance to take care of. And he probably just got tired of that and thought that he was going to die at some point, maybe.
Yeah, it seems like a smart move.
Knowing the end of this story, sounds like it was a smart move.
Yeah, something tells me he made a great decision for that day.
And then when they finally got to the spot where they were planning to catch all of their whales, they found that it had already been fished out, which is, I mean, a whale's not a fish, but that's the term that they use. And then
shouldn't have left so late.
Yeah, and then they went even pretty much every other ship that was planning on going out there had beaten them to it, and they were essentially last to the fishery.
Early bird gets a worm, you know.
And so they went out further into the Pacific to a super remote spot that was far away from all other land. Now, along the way, they needed to restock. A whale ship that was going out for 2.5 years wasn't going to be at sea the entire time. There were plenty of ports along the way where they could stop. They could get more food. They could get more water. They could, get materials for repairs, stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, I think they were doing that on the ship.
They had to hold it.
Wow.
They'd send letters back home, all sorts of stuff like that. There was a couple of spots where they were like unofficial letter spots. So one of the places where they stopped was the Galapagos Islands, which are on the Pacific side of South America. And the Galapagos Islands is full of tortoises.
Big ones.
Big tortoises. And it was customary for whalers at the time to nab a bunch of tortoises when they stopped at the Galapagos. Because they could live for like
animals. You fucked.
Ding, ding, ding. It's the turtle stop. Here we go.
It's the turtle stop. And so they would stop. It was customary to stop and grab some turtles because they could live on the ship for like a year without food or water. And they could have like a fresh source of meat on demand. Just like slaughter a tortoise and eat it.
And they would.
That's terrible.
It's blood.
Yeah, it's awful because they were living, but they were effectively starving the whole time.
Yeah.
And they just wouldn't feed them. They'd be like, it's fine. It's still alive.
They don't die, so it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have feelings either, I think.
Yeah. So remember Thomas Chappell? Did I mention him before? He was one of the sailors. No, I didn't mention him. Thomas Chappell was a little bit of a prankster. Oh, and another thing that I wanted to mention about the Galapagos. The reason why I brought it up at this point when talking about the mail is that there was an unofficial mailbox at the Galapagos that was just an overturned empty tortoise shell, and whalers would leave letters in there, and then when whalers were coming back the opposite direction, they would grab the letters from that and bring it to the next port, and then
oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I think that's cute.
I love that.
That's actually kind of cool.
I hate them, but I love that.
How would they how do you get that started? This
Word
like
of mouth.
you flop a thing over and then you're like, I hope someone puts mail in here, and you leave like
Or like you're talking to your whaling buddy and you're like, there's this island, right? You pass along this on your route. Okay, so if you go up the path, I'm going to leave a
take
turtle
3
shell
paces.
there. A tortoise shell. If you hit the big tree that looks like a butt, you've gone too far.
So they grabbed 180 tortoises while they were there on the islands.
That's so many.
Holy crap.
That's a lot of tortoises.
Where the fuck do they hold them?
On the ship. It's a big ship.
Okay.
It's like, I mean, it was big enough that effectively when
whales.
they would basically haul whales out of the water. And while they were holding the whale on the side of the ship off of the water, they would effectively like almost rappel down the whale and like slice off the blubber and just cut it apart and do all that, and then just boil it down in these like constantly going gigantic brass kettles on like the lower deck of the ship. It was kind of wild, but they were huge, big ships.
Got around the whole skeleton issue. Just process them off the side of the boat, take everything you can, and then dump the rest of the carcass back in the ocean.
Pretty much. Needless to say, they were popular with the sharks. So while on one of the more remote islands of the Galapagos, one of the sailors, whose name was Thomas Chappell, he was a bit of a prankster, and he decided to play a prank on the rest of the crew. And so what was the prank out of these 3 options?
Is it 2 dumps and a chump, or 2 chumps and a dump?
This is 2 chumps and a dump. So 1, he caught all the bees on the island, brought them to the ship, and let them loose below decks.
Oh, I hope that's real.
Oh my god.
That's great.
2,
I mean, how do you catch all the bees on one island?
It's a small island. 2, he made some fake footprints and convinced the rest of the crew that there is a monster on the island.
Bigfoot.
Or 3, he burned down the island.
I'm going to go with bees.
I hope it's bees, but my brain tells me he burned down the island.
Okay. He burned down the island.
But it's not a prank. That's just arson.
It's not a prank.
Isn't it so funny? It's just a prank, bro.
What the fuck?
He wanted to spook some people, so he started a little underbrush fire to like be like, ha ha ha, ha, there's a little fire. But it very, very quickly spread to the entire island and burned down the whole damn thing. And it caused the extinction of 2 species, the Floriana tortoise and the Floriana mockingbird.
You fucking asshole.
Oh my god.
And for years and years after, visitors to the island would describe it as a blackened wasteland. So we're off to a great start.
This is gonna be so funny. They're gonna be like, "Oh no, there's a fire! Oh no! It's going so fast! Oh no! Oh run!" That was my.
I heard he was having a gender reveal party. It just got out of control.
So from there on, they were going out to their whaling area, caught a few whales along the way, but fewer than they were expecting.
From that? Like didn't they say they could see the blaze from the island for days after sailing?
Well, see you later.
By all reports, Pollard was very mad. He was furious.
Like 2 days later, and you're like out on the deck of your ship, and there's just a plume in the background.
Like, that hasn't gone away yet.
I'm sure it's fine. Hey, dumbass! Remember that time that you set an island on fire?
Yeah, it's still going. I can see it from here.
Oh, look.
I don't even need a spyglass.
It's been 2 days and we can still see the smoke, asshole.
I hear turtles screaming.
Poor tortoises and those birds. Ugh.
I hate that guy now. I hate that guy. I want to slap him right in the face.
Yeah, that fucking guy.
I hope he gets got by the end of this. By the end of this episode, I really hope he gets got, and I hope he gets got good.
Well.
Slowly.
Andrew, if you were there, would you keel hold him? I mean, I probably.
Oh yeah. If I was the captain, I'd be like, bruh.
Off he goes.
I'm double checking, and from as far as I can tell, he didn't tell anybody that he did it until it was like too late for the captain.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Because he didn't want to get whipped.
I'm fuming right now. I hate this guy.
Yeah, this guy sucks. He was a boat steerer. I'm not going to tell you what his fate was.
Steer my boat right into his face. My boat's my fist. Yeah.
So at this point, they've lit the island on fire. They're on their way out to the Pacific. This is around the time when they realize that they are catching whales greatly under expectations. They've got a few Nantucket sleigh rides here and there. And at one point, the bottom of one of the whale boats was slapped out by a whale, but with no injuries. And it was unable to be repaired, but they had extras, so it's okay.
Wow.
So this is the point where I was going to ask Beau an open-ended question about what a Nantucket sleigh ride is, because I thought he'd come up with something funny.
Hey, Andrew,
Justin.
Get in the headspace of Beau.
Okay,
I forgot Justin's a replacement. Justin, get in the headspace of Beau.
Yeah.
Okay.
How would Beau answer this question?
Okay.
What's a Nantucket sleigh ride?
What's a Nantucket sleigh ride?
A Nantucket sleigh ride.
I like that giggle. That leads me to believe that there's something good coming.
A Nantucket sleigh ride is when you finish processing a whale carcass and you put the bones on the bottom of your ship and pull it across an island.
Whoa, that's hardcore.
Far less sexual than I thought.
That's extremely hardcore.
And then you have sex in it.
Oh, there, yeah. Oh, yeah, there he goes.
There it is.
That's great.
Oh, a Nantucket sleigh ride is so the process of hunting a whale is that, right, you've got the whale ship. The whale ship has smaller boats on it that would hold 6 people. And when the whale was sighted, they'd get into the little boats.
There she blows.
Yeah, and then they'd row out to the whale, and the harpooner would just start hucking harpoons at it. Once they, which are harpoons, would have the rope attached to it, and they had a special gizmo for like making sure that the rope would like go out without kinking, and they'd strap it into the boat. And the Nantucket sleigh ride is when the whale is tiring itself out after getting harpooned. So effectively, you'd rope yourself to an angry bleeding whale, and it would just swim around and try and get away, and they'd just be latched onto it. And
that sounds terrifying.
Why would you call that a sleigh ride? Sleigh rides are joyful and jolly.
It's a Nantucket sleigh ride.
Why? That's like just a Nantucket fucking murder session. What sleigh ride? What the? No.
Oh, yeah.
These grizzled whalemen being pulled by this sperm whale, and it's just.
Yeah, they're like, hey, has anybody ever been on a sleigh before? They're like, do you have to kill a whale? Like, maybe. Yeah, we'll call it that.
These were men who were raised to be whalers. So this was just what, they didn't see a living animal. They just saw, oh yeah, that's 100 barrels of whale oil right there, baby.
There's a bunch of sperm in that head. I'm gonna get it.
So once the whale was all tired out, the mate would have the honor of lancing the whale for the final blow, which is like a 12-foot lance that was specifically for like the killing blow of the whale. And so they would stab at a specific spot near the lungs to get this bundle of arteries that's right there. And once they got it, blood and gore would spray from the whale's blowhole, and then someone would shout, "Chimneys afire!"
Oh.
Man, they just had names for everything, didn't they?
Whoa.
Oh yeah, I mean, you spend all your days out on the ocean. You probably, I'd wager that for every one interesting day, you've got 30 that are boring as shit. So you got to come up with a fun word, fun things to say every once in a while, just to keep it interesting, right?
Chimneys afire.
Chimneys afire. Then on November 20th, 1820. Keep in mind, they left on August 12th, 1819, so they've been at sea for over a year at this point. They encountered a shoal of whales and went a-hunting at this spot that's right in the middle of the Pacific with barely anything around it. While they were hunting, a whale blasted one of the boats, and so Owen Chase and the whalemen who were on it brought it back onto the ship to repair the boat. While he was repairing, he noticed that a big bull whale, which was about 85 feet long, was separate from the whales that they were chasing in the boats. Now, 85 feet is, by today's standards, a monster whale. It would be unheard of to see a sperm whale that was 85 feet long.
That's fucking huge.
Yeah.
In 1819, there are a lot of reports of whales being this big. Like, it was uncommon, but it was something that you would see would be an 85-foot whale. You'd be like, that's a big fucking whale, but it wouldn't be like impossibly big. You know what I mean? And the theory is that they killed all the big ones, so they didn't
gene never
reproduce.
spread.
The genes for the big whales got
Fucking,
selected out.
I hate people, dude. I hate humans.
Yeah.
I want to see an
big-ass
85-foot
whale.
sperm whale so bad.
Yeah.
Well,
dude.
you're gonna love the next part, because this 85-foot whale, which was separate from the shoal of whales, turned straight for the ship and just went full speed. It bashed a hole right in the front of the boat.
Fuck yeah. Murder whales. Totally into it.
It swam away, and so Owen and the people who were on board were like desperately trying to pump out the water. They're like, okay, pump out the water. It made a hole, but it's not an impossibly big hole. Like, we can fix this. And we might have to abandon ship. I hope not, but we can fix it. And then the whale came back and went straight for the bow of the ship and just completely demolished it. Just big hole.
He really said double tap.
He turned around and said, "And one more thing."
And one more thing.
I just find it funny how.
And another one.
That's called the Pacific ski lift.
So from this point on, the boat sank so fast that with the ship, the Essex, sank so fast that Chase and the others on board had to essentially make a mad rush to grab all the navigational equipment on the ship and as much food as water and possible and throw it onto the remaining
turtles.
Boat. And yeah, a few tortoises made it on as well. So at this point,
let's pause right now, real quick. Fucking round of applause for whales right now. That was great.
Yeah. The whale's revenge. The revenge of the sperm whale.
I love that.
Well deserved and well accomplished.
I love that one was like, I'm so tired of these
dude. I'm bigger than this stupid thing. I can just take it out in 2 fell swoops.
Just pow.
So now you've got 20 men in 3 25-foot whale boats.
Do you know how much? Just curious. Do you know how much whale oil they were carrying when it went down?
I couldn't figure out an exact number, but it was, I think, 200 or 300 barrels.
Oh. Nerds. So you're saying it's still out there? We can get it. We can sell it to perfume companies.
Yeah, it's in the middle of the Pacific, so I'm not so sure that we'd be able
currents,
to get that.
Currents, that bad boy could be anywhere.
I'll just call up Ocean Gate and see what we can get going.
Hey. I'll get the Logitech controller. Let's do this.
So you've got 3 25-foot whaleboats, some food and water, a couple of random torts, and some tools and equipment. You've got the 2 existing whaleboats, which were out catching whales. They saw the ship sank and were immediately like, okay, we have to abandon this and go figure out what the fuck is happening. And they went back to the wreckage of the ship.
Well, at least they had any sense.
George Pollard, the captain, was in command of one of the whaleboats, and Matthew Joy, who was the second or third mate, was in command of the other whaleboat, and then you had Owen Chase at the helm of the last whaleboat.
Can you really have command over a boat? I feel like having a ship, like you have to have command. But if it's just a fucking dinky boat, like there's no command.
Well, I mean, you've got to have somebody to tell everyone what to do, right?
Like row, like that's not a command. That's just that's a reminder.
You got to make sure everyone rows in unison, right? So these are so whaleboats are just for rowing essentially. So they grabbed floating wreckage from the ship to make masts and sails for the boats, and then they used other wood that they found lying around to tallin up the sides a bit for protection from the elements.
Nice.
They had enough tools to make repairs. Like Owen had the foresight to grab some nails and these sorts of things. They had like telescopes and like a sextant and things like that. So they knew where they were and how to get where they needed to go. The closest
toward the
islands, fire. They're effectively right in the middle of the Pacific, and the closest islands are the Marquesas, which are in the South Pacific, 1,200 miles to the west.
Whoa.
Ooh.
And
nautical miles.
That is very far.
They would have, but that was the direction that the wind was going. They would have been able to get there relatively easy. The problem is that all of the rumors about the Marquesas said that they were full of cannibal savages. So they were worried that they'd spend weeks at sea. Well, they were worried that they'd spend weeks at sea making it to the Marquesas, and then as soon as they landed, they'd get, snatched up and eaten. And they didn't want to, they were worried about getting eaten by the people. But what they didn't know was that it's in the time between when they left Nantucket and now, a friendly trading post had been set up there, and they would have been perfectly fine. And also, they weren't really cannibals anyway.
It was just racism, wasn't it?
It was just racism. And so they make the intelligent decision to go back the way they came, which was not only more miles as the crow flies, like 2,000 miles. They were going to have to be going against the wind, which meant that to get there, they had to go south and kind of like ride the winds. They would have to ride the winds like crosswise, like we do in Valheim, because that's our.
Is that called tacking?
Have to go against the wind. Yes. Right, Justin?
Oh, yeah.
All right, great.
Checks out.
Resident pirate expert. Thank you.
So they figured that by skirting the winds, they could make it back to Peru in like a month, no problem, and then catch a whaler back to another whaler back to Nantucket. But this was effectively doubling the distance that it would have taken to get to any sort of rescue. If they'd just gone to the Marquesas, they would have been fine. They decided not to. So they thought it would be an awesome month at sea, no problem. It was not awesome.
I'm sure they didn't think it was going to be awesome.
Yeah, that was going to be easy.
No, they were very confident.
It's just going to be as easy as burning down an island. Let's do this.
Yeah, just like burning down an island. So it was not awesome. It took much longer than a month. So a week in, Pollard's boat had a mild chunk bitten out of it by an orca in the middle of the night.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Throwback.
That's fucking awesome.
Throwback to last week. They were able to fix it, though. Thankfully, they could fix it. They caught some fish along the way, but ultimately they ran out of water pretty quickly. And within a few weeks, they were rinsing their mouths out with seawater, drinking piss and turtle blood, not really having a great time. So after a month, they found an island.
Oh.
And so what do you think happened on that island? They did not burn that down. Spoiler alert, they didn't burn down the island.
Damn. They set up a repertoire already. I just thought that's what they do now.
Chump or dump. Here's 2 chumps and a dump again, because only one thing happened, so I can't. So what happened? They had a nice little break. They found the cannibals they were trying to avoid in the Marquesas, or they discovered a new species of venomous snake and had to flee in the middle of the night.
I'm hoping the cannibal part. I'm sure Justin knows this.
I'm going to go with snake.
Nope, this is actually a nice part. They had a nice little break.
Oh,
they
fuck
had
you. I don't want to hear about their happy times. I want to hear about their sad times.
So they were able to, this island had no people on it, but it had plenty of plants and animals, and they spent a week gorging themselves on birds and crabs and eggs, and eventually kind of realized that they had eaten almost everything on the island. It was not a big island, but they basically spent, after a month at sea, they had a week little island vacation of just gorging themselves on everything.
Where they devastated more populations of local animals.
Two islands, all animals gone.
They basically burned it down.
They burned it down with their stomachs.
So as they were leaving, 3 guys decided that they wanted to stay. They
on the island?
They decided that they had it with the boats. They were tired of the boats.
What would they
wanted
do?
To stay on the island.
There's no more food.
Well, there wasn't no more food. There wasn't very much food.
I guess you could go fishing or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And so these 3 guys were the only white members of the crew who were not from Nantucket. And they had gotten really tired of the Nantucketers being super cliquey, effectively. Like all the people who were from Nantucket just were like acting like they were better than the guys who were not from Nantucket. And they decided
if you're from Nantucket, I mean, you're from Nantucket. You're not cool at all. So, you can't sound cool saying like, I'm from Nantucket. You'd be like, I'm from Compton. Like, that's fucking hard as shit. I mean, where are you from? Nantucket? Like, what?
But you can be like, oh, you wouldn't get it because you're not from Nantucket.
Oh, God, they're those
Only
people
who were born there would get it.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
now I just imagine these grizzled, hardened whalers as teenage girls.
Valley girls. So remember back in Nantucket when we were like whaling and stuff?
Oh, you're not from Nantucket.
The irony of the situation... The irony of this situation is that one of the guys who wanted to stay behind was Thomas Chappell.
The one who burned down the island?
Fuck that guy.
The one who burned down the other island.
I agree with that decision because I probably would have done the same thing, but I also would have like kicked his ass as soon as I left. Like, no fire for you.
What was the phrase that they used for the chimney blood? What was it?
Chimneys of flame. Fire. Yeah, chimneys of fire.
Like chimneys of fire.
Am I right?
I mean, they were like, yeah, you can leave. This is 3 fewer mouths to feed. And also, you guys aren't Nantucketers anyway, so who cares? So they went back out to sea, leaving Thomas Chappell and the other 2 of them behind.
Would you consider that a smart decision? I consider that a smart decision.
Probably.
I assume they didn't make it, but I think it's honestly like not a terrible decision.
I fully understand why they would want to have been left behind.
Have you ever annoyed somebody so much that they would rather hang out on a deserted island than hang out with you ever again?
So they went back out to sea. Now, by January the 17th, there were 17 people left on these 3 boats. And by January, they started dying. This has been a month and a half. It was November 20th was when the ship sank. So we're now in mid-January.
That's fucking nuts.
Yeah. And so the first to go was Matthew Joy. He was the second mate, and he had been sick for quite some time. He had started off as as being in charge of one of the boats, but he had been sick and never really recovered, and so he had been moved onto Pollard's boat, and a guy named Obed Hendricks took over as the head of that boat. And so Matthew Joy died. Then a couple of days after that, Owen Chase's boat got separated from the other 2. Then on his boat a few days after that, a guy named Richard Peterson died on January 20th. And so Matthew Joy and Richard Peterson were both buried at sea. They were just thrown off the side of the boat and left into the ocean. And maybe because of this, a shark showed up at one point.
Oh, no. I mean, oh, yeah, I'm rooting for the shark.
Everyone was like, oh, my God, food. The shark is food. And they stabbed at it with the lance that was still on board and to try and kill it. But they were too weak to even like dent the skin.
Oh.
But they did get it to swim away. And then the next day there was porpoises along the side of the boat. But they were even worse at that. And I feel like they were probably just being taunted by the porpoises who were like, we're supposed to be here and you're not, idiots. Now it is January 20th, back to January 20th. And
that's crazy they lasted this long, honestly.
Yeah. It's wild. They had some food and water and they were pretty decent at rationing it. Chase's boat was better at rationing their food than the other 2. And so But even like despite their best efforts, Richard Peterson died on January 20th. Then on the same day on Hendrick's boat, a guy named Lawson Thomas died. Now, Hendricks's boat was not doing nearly as well as Chase's boat, and they were pretty much out of provisions at this point. A lot of their hardtack had been soaked in seawater and they couldn't eat it. And so after much debate, they decided to cut off his limbs, cut open his torso, and take out the organs, sew it back up, throw the torso into the sea, and eat the limbs and the organs.
Jesus
so
Christ.
They became the cannibals they were trying to avoid.
The very cannibals.
Now
they were
you are the
afraid of.
cannibals. Yep, so they cannibalized poor old Lawson Thomas.
The call is coming from inside the house.
Inside the organs.
Yeah, they ate his organs. A few days after that, and so like eating a person when you're in this sort of situation, it's like it's not. I mean, it'll support you for like a little while, sure, but by this point, everyone's starving, so there's not even that much meat on each person. You've got like basically like 5 people trying to share 30 pounds of super duper lean meat.
Probably doesn't have any nutrients in it.
There's very little, and the problem is that there's no fat on it, and you need fat to eat to aid digestion, and so essentially you're just eating a shitload of jerky that's just not cured
It's
yet.
fine. They were just doing the keto diet. It's totally cool.
No, the keto diet is high in fat. It's low in carbs.
I don't know what the keto diet is. Okay.
To this point, they've all been eating carbs. It's just been hardtack and I guess turtle meat. Okay, it's not all carbs, but they're
So at this point, how many are left? Like what? 10
people or turtles?
people.
People, there is. Let me see. There's 17, and then Matthew Joy died, so there's 16, and then Richard Peterson died, so there's 15. Then Thomas died, so there's 14 people. A couple of days later, Charles Shorter died. And then a couple of days after that, Isaiah Shepard died, and they ate both of them too.
So once they popped,
You
They did not stop.
You can't stop. And this was all on Hendricks's boat.
Jeez, they were
Funny.
wilding over there.
Did the
They were
other boat
wild
know
on
that they were
Hendricks's
doing that?
boat. Yeah, so Pollard's boat was right next. They were within
Like,
sight
what
of
are you
each
eating
other
over
at all times.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Like
I don't think they wanted to.
Like an eyeball like hanging out of his mouth. Like nothing.
And so effectively, this is a sort of situation where they're all so starving that any amount of food isn't like satisfying them, and they've eaten like 4 people in a week, and it's just like they can't handle it.
Why are you still hungry? You ate 4 people last week.
This is why you need a strong head of your ship so that you can ration your provisions so that people just don't start eating each other willy-nilly.
This is why you need a ship that's big enough to be
barraged by a whale.
Exactly.
Yeah. On Pollard's boat, the day after Isaiah Shepard died, a guy named Samuel Reed died, and he was eaten. And this was the first person who was eaten on Pollard's boat.
Ah, yummy.
I think the count is like 9 or 10.
Yeah. And so
left.
this is it is worth noting at this point that these past few guys who were eaten, they were
delicious.
They were all the black people on the crew members. There's only one black crew member left at this point, and he was on Hendricks's boat.
Is it racist if they eat him, or is it racist if they don't eat him?
Well, the theory is that it was racist because it was essentially this like Nantucketer clickiness that we were talking about before, that they weren't giving as much food to, and they were to
Jesus,
the black crew
I didn't even
members,
think about
and
that. Yeah, that's racist.
Awful.
And they were making them do more work. And they were like saving all of the good food for themselves. And so the black crew members died first because they weren't getting as much food, and then they were eating the black crew members.
Just when you thought they couldn't get more fucked up.
Yeah.
These guys are terrible. Like in every sense of the word.
Yeah, there's been no redeeming
people.
qualities from these fuckers.
The poor one guy left on that boat. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, the one guy who jumps, the poor one guy left. You mean? Oh my, the dude who left in like Chile or something, like wherever they were. That dude's fucking genius.
Yeah,
just eating a crab on the beach. I wonder what the guys are up to. And then he's just like rocking back and forth, like they killed my friends and they're gonna eat me and I'm gonna die on this boat.
He's like, hey guys, I heard dark meat's disgusting.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where it's 1820, so like yeah, they're racist as shit. I mean, they didn't go for the surefire way of getting, or like the easiest way to get rescued, because they were too racist.
Yeah.
It's true.
So it's difficult to have sympathy for them at this point. But
And they're also
at the same
racist against
time-
whales.
At the same time, you got to think about all these dudes just like on a boat, just for months and months on these boats, just being tossed along the waves and just desperately trying to make it back
They're
to.
in this because
rescue.
of their own stupid decisions. I feel no remorse for them.
On Hendrix's boat. So there's the one black crew member left on Hendrix's boat, but it doesn't matter because on January 29th, Hendrix's boat went missing in the middle of the night and was never seen again.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, so nobody knows what happened to Hendrix's boat. But a few years later, somebody found a boat full of bones on a desert island.
No shit.
It's never been positively identified. Like the bones were not kept. Nobody is like, they haven't been able to figure out who the bones belong to. But a popular theory is that it was the remnants of Hendrix's boat.
Was it a whaling boat with makeshift mast and sails and sides?
Huh.
I think so.
And one guy with a bone in his mouth.
So back to Pollard's boat. There's 4 men left on this boat, and they have just run out of man rations from when Samuel Reed died.
Man rations.
I hate that. That's a weird term.
And so on
We're almost
February
out of
6th,
people.
now morale is at what did he say?
I said they're almost out of people.
Yeah. So February 6th.
Can we please call it asshole jerky from now on?
Yeah, asshole jerky.
No,
So
that makes me
February
think
6th?
it's jerky made of asshole.
Yeah, that's not. It's jerky made of a guy who's an asshole. It's double entendre.
Is that like,
Because it might
rings
be
like
made of his asshole
calamari?
at this point. Oh,
Yeah,
don't say calamari. They look like little assholes.
It's February 6th. The guy died on the 28th. So how many days has it been? 8 days since the last guy died? They ran out of his asshole jerky a few days ago, and they've got no food
his
left.
asshole jerky implies it is his asshole. You just have to say asshole jerky.
So they decide to draw lots.
Oh, no.
Oh, what?
And kill and eat whoever loses.
Oh, that's
Kill?
so bad.
Yeah, so
Isn't one of them
drawing
going to
lots
die in 5 minutes anyway?
Well,
It's been 3 days.
it's been
Or 8 days, sorry.
Like, why
It's been
hasn't
8
anyone
days.
died yet? I'm hungry.
And so they decide that, they're going to draw lots. And the book that I read was not exactly sure, was not exactly forthcoming on what method of drawing lots that they used. But typically it's, you put a piece of paper into a hat. One of them has a spot on it. And the person who draws the piece of paper with the spot loses.
Black spot.
So morale is incredibly low. It's been like 3 months at sea at this point. And
I
you're
can't
telling
imagine
me
why.
that
You know what I'm
starving
saying?
to death for months and eating your fellow crewmates
Most
isn't a
of your
rip
friends.
roaring good time?
I mean, 80% of my friends.
And it's the other thing that's kind of noteworthy about how desperate they would have been to get to this point is that drawing lots was also gambling, and they were all Quakers.
Oh my gosh. They got to sin while they're sinning.
They gotta.
Yeah, so it's like double sinning.
That cancels it out. That means it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
So
that's Christian.
At this
method.
point, do you remember Owen Coffin, who I brought up at the beginning?
The classic like dead guy name. Yeah, I'm guessing. Did he draw lots?
Yeah. So he was George Pollard's 18-year-old cousin, who his sister was the kid's parent, and he had said
That's how families work. Yeah.
that I will be giving him his first experience at sea, and I'll be making sure that it is a very safe and good time for him, and I will
I'm going to
protect
teach
him.
him right,
You
and
know.
he's
I'm gonna
going to
look
be
after him.
fine.
Like
Yeah,
a lie.
So Coffin draws the spot. Coffin loses the drawing lots. And so Pollard freaks out, and he's like, no way, absolutely not. But Coffin is like, daddy, chill. And it takes it like, he's like, okay, do it, kill me. So then they have to draw lots again to see who's going to kill him.
Oh my God.
Oh, God.
Did he have to kill himself?
No, it falls to his friend who they like signed up together. A kid who was
Why
the
would
same
they
age
even
named
draw
Charles.
lots at that point, though? He doesn't want him to, like, if Pollard was like, I don't want this guy to die, then they're like, well, you have to kill him now. He definitely would say no.
Well, I mean, Coffin was very much like, no, like this is the situation. Like
It's the reality. Like, I know you
There's
made
the
this
reality.
promise, but this is how the cookie crumbles, and I'm okay
Yeah.
with it.
This is how
And
the coffin.
I drew the spot. This is how the
Kills
coffin
his
closes.
cousin.
I need a pun.
This is how the coffin closes.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the final nail in the coffin.
There you
for
go.
this
That's
guy.
it. That's it.
I would rather be killed than eat another friend.
Yeah, it's terrible. And
that's what an honorable man does at sea.
He's come this far. He should fight it.
And so it falls down to Charles Ramsdell to shoot him. They still have a gun on board, and I guess gunpowder.
They didn't use that on the shark? Come on.
I think that was Owen Chase's boat. They had been separated. Okay. And so Coffin reassures him that everything will be fine and he should go for it. So they push him up against the bow of the ship and shoot him, and then they eat him.
Jesus Christ.
So 5 days later,
I think I would have jumped into the sea so long ago. Take me home. I'm one with the ocean now. Like, the orcas can have me.
Yeah.
I would love to be eaten by a whale after drowning. I think that's a good way to go.
I think so too.
Jonah style?
Yeah. Just without the religious overtones.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So then 5 days after that, 5 days after they ate Owen Coffin, a guy named Barzillai Ray died on February 11th, which just leaves Pollard and Ramsdell, the guy who killed his nephew.
Sorry about that.
That's an awkward conversation.
And then they just kept going. I mean, what else are you going to do? They just keep on sailing. If they're completely out of food, they're sucking on bones. They're cracking open the bones that are left and like sucking out the marrow.
That's
and
eventually
they're just like lying catatonic in the boat, just fixating on and sucking on these boats. And then finally, on February 23rd, they feel a bump, and it turns out that they sailed right into a whaleboat called the Dauphin off the coast of South America. And they looked down at them and saw two gaunt, crazy men starving half to death, surrounded by bones.
Holy shit. At that point, they're like, you cannot come on this boat with us. You will eat us.
So the guys looked up and were like, oh, look, more food.
And so that was how Pollard... that was how Pollard and Charles Ramsdell were rescued on February 23rd.
How this story got out if none of them survived.
Mm-hmm. So if you remember, we also have to deal with Owen Chase's boat.
He got separated forever ago. What have they been doing?
Forever ago. I didn't want to have to do like a here's the thing, like switch it back and forth. So I figured I'd just tell the story of Pollard's boat to the end. Back on Chase's boat, Owen Chase was...
Well, I'm sorry. I can't get over the fact that they just like bumped into a whaleboat after like...
Well, from their perspective, they bumped into a whaleboat, but the whaleboat saw them and like went after them, but they were too catatonic and sucking on bones.
But like that's crazy that like
their
plane actually they just like floated to the coast of South America, and so I was like,
so
hey,
fucking lucky.
Yeah, it's incredibly lucky.
So the other boat, how long ago did they get separated? Time-wise?
So
how many deaths?
Separated. They had been separated from Owen Chase's boat right after the first guy died.
A lifetime ago.
A lot has happened since then.
So a lot has happened since then. Chase's boat was separated. I didn't write down the exact date, but it was in between January 10th and 20th. And this was like a month later. It was only the two guys sucking on bones, and they were rescued on February 23rd. So on Chase's boat, things went a little bit better, but not much. They were better at rationing their food. It seems like Chase just kind of had a better handle on the situation than Pollard or Hendricks did. The next person didn't die until February 8th.
Wow.
Which was almost a month after they were separated.
That's pretty good.
He was named Isaac Cole. He went mad and he just like shot up from sitting down on the boat. He just stood straight up and he just started ranting and raving and twitching. And then fell down and was like moaned for a few hours and died.
Actually, maybe that would have been me. I think maybe I could see myself doing that.
Just have a complete mental breakdown, fall over and die.
Yeah, just like have a conniption.
Sound like the crazy cat lady from The Simpsons for a while and then just die.
Just fucking throw this stuff in the water.
Yeah, it's like that.
So... They didn't know. They had no idea what was going on in the other boats. They didn't know that people were eating each other left and right on the other boats. And so they didn't want to broach the topic of eating this guy, even though they were all starving to death at this point. And so they waited. They let his body just like sit there on the boat for a day because nobody wanted to be the one to.
Hey, like, maybe we should eat this guy.
Somebody's like, they're all sitting around him and somebody just slaps their knees and goes, well.
Time to eat a dead guy.
In my old reports, I think that was Owen Chase who was that guy, because I mean he was the leader, and he was like, "Well, I guess we should eat him."
He's looking pretty tasty.
They cut him up and cooked the food, and they mentioned that at that point the meat had started going green, but they didn't have a better option, so they just ate him anyway.
Oh no,
Green people meat.
And it seems like they
Soylent Green is people.
Soylent Green is people.
a few days later they were out of food again. And Thomas Nickerson, who was on this boat, he was like the 14-year-old cabin boy. He started offering to be like, okay, like just kill me and you can eat me. I'm the young one. I'm probably tender. It'll be fine.
I'm delicious.
Why
But
does
they
that
wouldn't let him.
just make me uncomfortable? Like, I'm tender. You should eat me.
He's like walking past him, like, look at my muscles.
he was saying this while they were still on the Essex. Just made
Yeah, this was like as soon as they left port, like in fucking Nantucket.
He's got this.
Oh,
weird
I hope we
war
don't have to
thing.
resort to cannibalism.
Am I right, guys? And he's like, finally.
Effectively, they were like, "No, Tom, this is ridiculous.
We're not just going to murder
kill
you and eat you.
Who does that?
Yeah, we're not going to murder you and eat you." Then on February 18th, they spied a sail and they managed to chase down the ship, and they ended up being rescued. And at this point, there's three people. There's three people on that boat.
They did pretty good.
Lose as
like,
many.
They had to
only
eat someone, and I'm sure that was really traumatic. But like in the grand scheme of things, like when you cut back to Pollard and Randall or whatever his name was, like sucking the marrow out of bones, being skeletons themselves.
Yeah,
and he was crazy too. Like, you don't feel bad for eating a crazy guy, you know.
Yeah, and this boat started with fewer people on it because this was like the boat of people that were on the ship when it got walloped by the whale. So they had fewer people on the boat, and they probably had, I don't know if they had more rations or if they were just better at rationing them. But Chase seemed to have a better grasp on the situation than Pollard or Hendricks did. And yeah, so only 2 people died on that boat, I think.
That's kind of impressive.
Numbers game, they won.
Mm-hmm. So ultimately, 5 people out of the initial 20 were rescued from these boats. But you remember those 3 guys who were left behind on the island?
What about the 3 on the island?
Oh, yeah.
What about
they found them in a burning heap a month later.
So I don't know if it was Chase or Pollard, but the officials were informed that they had left 3 people behind on an island.
Hey, we got some crewmates.
They thought that it was one island, but it turned out to be a different island than the one that they thought it was. And so they told them the wrong island where these 3 people were, but they actually ended up finding them anyway.
Wow.
And so they found the island they were on, and they all survived. They were all still alive.
Huh.
Wow.
They probably had a much better time of things then, too.
Honestly.
Mm-hmm. And they were rescued in April. So shortly after.
Wait, like they were found in February, and it took them a month and a half to get them?
I mean, it takes a long time to get places on a wind-powered ship.
I guess that's true.
And they didn't even know which island it was.
I forgot that helicopters don't exist back then.
Go to island 300 in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
I wonder if they were like emaciated, or if they
should...
were just like actively eating fish the entire time. They're just like, I'm good.
If you hit the island that's burned down, you've gone too far.
Too far.
They had like fashion sunglasses and camp chairs.
Oh yeah, they like little ukuleles and stuff.
Yeah, they seemed to make a decent go of it. Survived for like a solid 4 months on this island.
All right. I'm still mad that they killed whales, but you know, this is a good story.
Mm-hmm. So ultimately, out of the 20 people who were on the Essex when it was stove by a whale, 8 of them survived. The men in the boats, so the men on Owen's boat and the men on Chase's boat and the men on Pollard's boat, the 5 of them were reunited on March 17th after spending time recuperating in South America, and then they all went back to Nantucket, and all 8 of them were back out to sea within a few months.
Oh my!
What the fuck?
Shit.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because it was the only thing they knew how to do.
Is land that boring? Yeah, because like the reunion, it's like in Lord of the Rings when Sam sees Frodo again. And like they run and they jump on the bed. They're like, buddies, like, how many people do you eat? And like, just one. Like, just one, dude. I ate so many.
My guess is that.
Hey, where's your cousin? Oh God! Just points to the toilet.
Oh my God!
One thing that you'll be happy to learn is that Thomas Chappell,
it was delicious.
the guy who burned down the island, ended up dying of fever not too long after.
So you're saying he got too hot and died? That's fucking karma.
Oh, you're gonna hate this guy too, because after that he became a missionary, and then he died in the south on Timor Island. He died of plague fever, they called it. So that's fun.
He burned an entire island, and then the plague burned his brain.
Yeah, exactly.
I love
Caused
it.
the extinction of 2 species. It's just
Owen
a prank,
Chase.
bro.
It's just a prank, bro.
Yeah, it's just a prank. Owen Chase and Tom Nickerson both wrote books about it. Owen Chase published, he wrote a diary that he published that I've read, and it was a pretty good read. But Nickerson beat him to it and wrote the first story about it. It was a news sensation. The newspapers wrote about it when they were rescued and everything, and people knew about the story. But Nickerson was the first one to write a first person account of everything that happened, and then Owen Chase wrote his own book as well. And Chase was always out at sea. I don't know how he processed this trauma or what, but he was basically coming back to Nantucket once every 2 or 3 years to knock up his wife and then go right back out to sea. He was never back. He was never on land for more than a month or two at a time.
Yeah, too many people got too hungry.
Yep.
I can't remember if it was Chase or Pollard, but one of them, I think it was Chase, came back to Nantucket to find out that he had a 16-month-old daughter.
After
the time
situation?
that Daddy ate people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which was a normal age for the child to be. It wasn't that his wife was cheating on him. It was just that she was pregnant when he left, and they didn't
I was hoping
know.
his wife was cheating on him.
No. But she did leave him.
Yay.
He ended up having a couple of wives.
Boo.
But he had nightmares all the time for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And a lot of headaches. And once he retired from the sea, he was hoarding food in his attic and being really weird.
Yeah. That all tracks.
A little bit of trauma there.
A couple of psychological scars from what he went through, I'd imagine.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. And then George Pollard went back out to sea. He was brought back to Nantucket in a ship, and then he became the captain of that ship somehow.
What?
After
He's like, do it or I'll eat you. And they're like, okay. He's got documentation. He's got the receipts. See the bones?
And so that ship sank on its first voyage.
This guy needs to get the frick out of the ocean, man.
He needs to become an accountant or something. Fucking give up.
That's what happened. That's what happened. Basically, at that point, he was deemed to be cursed.
Fool me once.
Shame on the whales. Fool me twice. Okay, I got it.
It's probably that guy. He's probably just bad at being a captain and cursed. Cursed by the whales.
Holy shit.
So he eventually he returned to Nantucket, and he wasn't allowed to go back on the ships anymore, but all he knew was Nantucket. And so he became the night watchman. And he spent a lot of time in the taverns when he was off duty, telling the story to anyone who would listen. And one of these who heard the story was Herman Melville, who was directly then inspired to write Moby Dick based on his time talking to George Pollard in taverns on
He just
Nantucket.
ripped it off.
Which was published in 1850, a few years later.
Right on.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history. Ash, what was the favorite thing you learned about this story?
I think I knew all of that information before. It was a wonderful retelling. Zachary, you did a really good job.
Thank you.
Mr. Justin, I know you knew about the story before, but what is your favorite thing that you learned about the story that you didn't know?
Perfume is made from whale poop.
I like when the whale sank the ship.
Yeah, I mean, that's great.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I didn't like when the guy burned down the thing. I didn't like when the guys were racist about food. All around, I'm glad that most of them got.
Yeah, it couldn't have happened to a better group of guys, huh?
Yeah,
The rest is history.
Usually you try and have some sympathy for the people that are going through this horrible ordeal, but they were just all around bad guys.
Yeah, and making bad decisions all the way. Left too late, burning down islands, being dumb, eating each other,
Being racist, hunting whales.
Yeah.
saying funny sayings when they're hunting the whales too. No, fuck these guys.
Chimney's a fire.
And-
Zach, what's the most favorite thing you learned about the story, even though you told it?
I think my favorite thing that I learned is about the tortoiseshell mailbox.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The
That was great.
tortoiseshell mailbox. That is the best thing that I learned.
That's wholesome. I hope it's still there.
That's
It's
my
probably
favorite
not.
thing.
Yeah, like the whole second half of the story is there's not a lot of fun facts there. There's just a lot of misery.
Yeah, but that one guy who got off at the beginning was fucking genius.
Yeah,
Right.
he really knew it. What was his name? Let me see.
And going back
Smarty
to
McSmarty Pants.
the In the Heart of the Sea movie, I think that it leaned more toward Moby Dick and less like the true story of In the Heart of the Sea.
They put a bunch of Jaws shit into it, too.
Yeah.
Because, well, first of all, the whale that stove in the boat was made to be white, like Moby Dick. And then it came back and harassed the boats a bunch of times throughout the movie.
It was like chasing them
Right.
while they were in the whale boats, like for days in the movie.
Who writes this shit? They're like, oh, whatever.
Ron
Howard.
Ron, you fucker.
Run! Come on.
You redheaded little shit. He's older than me. Jesus Christ. Well, okay. Well, that was, thank you. The little bit long episode today, but I think it was worth it. It was great. Zach, thank you for jumping on this. It was
Henry
fantastic.
DeWitt was the guy who abandoned.
Had really had his wits about him. About
Just
the
like
situation at hand.
Henry DeWitt.
Also, he was black, so he probably had really made a really good decision.
There you go. Holy crap. Well, yeah, thanks for listening. That was a great episode. Thank you, Zach, for dumping on us. It was fantastic.
Hey, you're welcome. I had a really great time. This story's been kicking around my head for a long time, so I'm happy to retell it.
Oh, yeah. And until then, we'll see you next Wednesday. Humpday Dumpday. New stuff coming at you every Wednesday. And if you feel like sending us an email or just follow us on Instagram, our email is getdumpedonpodcast@gmail.com. And our Instagram is getdumpedonpod. So thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Ash and Zach are super smart. They went to college and learned a bunch of stuff. And Beau and Andrew didn't go to college because that's the way life goes sometimes. What happens when you put them together and you try to make them learn? Grab your friends, let's listen together on Get Dumped On an Info Dump Podcast.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jaunty ending for a tragic story.
Yar.
Yar.